Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there so far. Here to bring you the latest information that we have on what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Tuesday. You know, all in all, not a very active day at all. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to speak on. There is going to be a risk of strong to severe storms across areas of the northern Rockies, really speaking on Montana specifically. So we will zoom into that area. And really across the eastern U.S., the big storyline is a fantastic late summer air mass that is being brought to you by this trough that's digging pretty aggressively across pretty much the entire eastern U.S. So there is going to be a little bit of shower and storm activity, more so just shower activity embedded in this trough. With the trough being a low pressure itself, it can bring some activity with it, embedded in it, if you will. So New England will kind of have a day where it's almost like fall-like, some scattered showers, cooler temperatures. We'll speak a little bit on that, spend some time on that. And then there is going to be some storm development south of this actual cold front that is pretty much with this trough that's digging down across the eastern U.S. So we'll speak on who could see some storms across the southeast, the deep south today. And we'll cover everybody. A lot of heat across the south central U.S. We'll speak a little bit on that. After we get done covering the entire lower 48, we're going to spend some time on the tropics this morning. Second half of the video, we're going to discuss some model guidance. We're pretty much done with Ernesto. Heading way off into the North Atlantic now. Hope you folks in Newfoundland are faring well this morning. And the impacts were not too heavy up there, but we're pretty much done covering Ernesto. What's next? The next named storm is Francine. When are we going to get it? Not sure, but what we're going to do here is we're going to spend some time on model guidance, talk about what we're seeing, and I'm going to speak on a period or a time frame coming up when I think the tropics is going to get active again. So I'm going to give you guys my take on it. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. We're going to start off by looking at water vapor loop. We used to do this all the time for my viewers that's been tuning in for a while. But I now kind of only do it when you can really see the pattern very well on water vapor loop, which is normally more so in the fall and winter and spring. But you can see it very well on water vapor loop this morning. If you look right here, you got a flow kind of screeching into the west coast right here. And then it kind of builds up here, and then it dramatically shoots down here, kind of levels off down there, and then it dramatically shoots back up here. Well, you see this big plume of what looks like gray kind of gradually oozing south in the north. Well, that is our air mass coming in, sort of our secondary push of dry air that's rushing across the Great Lakes region, areas of the interior sections of New England, the Ohio Valley. Some dry air has already made it all the way down to like the deep south, the Carolinas, the southern Alps. As you can tell, a little bit more doled out colors indicated, kind of embedded in these arrows and these lines I drew, indicating some dry air. If you look right here with this ridge building into this area, which can bring dry sinking air, but a lot of times the ridge, you have a lot of energy embedded into the ridge. And the same situation happens in troughing too. You got the actual lower pressure, which can get some activity going. And you see this little spin right here. That will actually get some shower and maybe some storm activity. Nothing severe really ongoing in this section of New England today. So, there's so many little interesting features out there in the pattern that, aren't, there's a lot of people that just don't have the time to spin on it. And I love talking about it, but you see this, Aryan white right in here. These are embedded pieces of energy in the ridge. And it's just a amplified pattern right now. Big ridge building into this area. Big trough digging down to this area into the eastern U.S., which is bringing such a nice air mass. So that, you can see the pattern very well in water vapor loop. I love looking at this. I'm a weather nerd, so this kind of stuff fascinates me. So you can see the pattern very well on water vapor loop. A little bit of troughing over the Pacific Northwest. So you guys are just a little bit cooler on the northwest flank of the ridge, if you will. So that's what's going on as far as water vapor loop. Now, what does this mean? Like, keep your eyes on this, right? And we're going to flip it to the radar. So this is the radar. Notice there is nothing going on in this entire region right in here. Not a good color. In this entire region right in here. That is because the trough is digging down into this region. And then it quickly goes up, and the cold front hasn't fully cleared out the entire New England area. So you still got a lot of shower activity, not really storm activity, across areas of Atlantic Canada. A big plume of moisture just north of kind of the Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Canadian line here on the Canadian side here in Quebec. So you got moisture kind of hanging off the coast of the southeast because the cold front is not sagged all the way through. A little bit of moisture down here in the Gulf of Mexico. You got to watch that stuff. And then along the boundary of the actual cold front in the ridge, you got energy right here, which is just in the form of a lot of heavy rain right now. No real big time storm activity. And then of course, you got the pattern kind of screeching across here, the jet, and then you got energy on kind of the cooler side. So you can see the pattern very well. Ridge building up into here, a little bit more dry air associated, sinking air with the ridge. So even on the radar, guys, and I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, you can see it very well. And the reason I'm just spending a little extra time on this morning is because as far as what's going to happen weather-wise across the lower 48, we're going to pretty much sim through this pretty fast just because there's no dangerous weather or anything going on. So just spending a little extra time on some of these features here. But as far as watches, warnings, and advisories, I mean, as you can tell, there's not a whole lot going on. No flood watches up. And by the way, I did not realize what happened in, what was it, Connecticut? I believe it was Sunday with the catastrophic flooding. Praying for you guys up there. You know, I'll be completely honest with you, and I feel bad for it. I didn't realize that it got so bad up there Sunday evening, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize if I am. Until I started seeing videos and pictures on social media yesterday, and then it linked up perfectly with the comments that you guys were leaving. So I'm praying for you guys up there. We're all praying for you folks. You just never know when little micro areas can see devastating events. So certainly thinking of you guys up there, and have been since yesterday into this morning. But heat advisories in the orange, excessive heat warnings in the purple color, very hot in Texas, even heat advisories in like the Miami area, and southern sections of Florida. Got a couple red flag warnings up in Nevada and some excessive heat warnings in California and Arizona. But outside of that, it's a quiet weather day when you're looking at alerts, you know. So excessive rainfall outlook, I mean, it tells a story too, right? I mean, there's just a marginal risk across the Four Corners region. So outside of that, it's quiet. I mean, it's a pretty quiet start out here. So, and it will be a quiet weather day for the most part. The Storm Prediction Center, one thing you'll notice is there's a shade of light green here, and that is basically where the cold front is not really fully cleared. So you got just enough moisture, or even if the initial cold front did clear, there's just enough moisture just going to build right back in. So there's still a lot of moisture hanging out along the Carolina and Georgia coastline, and pretty much for the entire peninsula and northern sections of Florida. So you guys are still going to have a risk of thunderstorms today, risk of thunderstorms embedded in this ridge. And basically embedded in this ridge, there's little impulses of energy that promote the atmosphere that could support some of these storms to be severe. And you got this little impulse of energy down here near southeast Colorado and surrounding states. And then you got to watch the high plains up into Montana. There's a slight risk up here for the heart of Montana, level 2 out of 5. Tornado risk below 2%, so not showing up. Wind threat, though. In the yellow area, that's where we have a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And the hail threat, just a 5% risk. So the southeast today, not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. The only area that we could see some thunderstorms is the peninsula of Florida, but even you folks don't look very active as far as thunderstorms. And then of course you look along the Carolina coastline. If you look very closely here, especially the South Carolina coastline, some thunderstorms could pop up. So if you're vacationing, taking a late summer vacation, don't be surprised if you get some thunderstorms today, anywhere from Tybee Island, Jacksonville, up to Savannah, up to Beaufort, Charleston, Myrtle Beach. I mean, all the way up into the eastern sections of North Carolina. It's very possible you could get some storms. I tell you, yesterday the storms were a lot more widespread than even I thought they were going to be. It was a very stormy day across some certain areas, the Carolinas, and especially eastern Virginia. I looked at radar yesterday evening. I was like, dang, I kind of whiffed that. So I did talk about it, just not a whole lot. But waking up tomorrow morning, Tampa could wake up to some storms down to Fort Myers. So we'll watch for that. But the Northeast today, a very fall-like day for certain areas. Now, I know your definition of fall in the Northeast is a little bit different than our definition of fall in the South here where I live. But for late August, man, there's a loud bird right outside my window here. It's a good song. But this morning, it's nice. But what you're going to notice here is you're going to get a little bit of a northerly flow. And by the time you get into this afternoon, some showers, some that could produce some very small hail, some cold air aloft. And, we got some showers just kind of drifting through areas of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, a little bit, maybe in northern to western Maine. And it'll just kind of drift through from the north to northeast and kind of pivot around this upper low embedded in this trough. And just you'll wake up tomorrow morning, you'll be doing it again. And what's interesting with this is just the temperatures combined with this. Temperatures, some areas in the valley regions will get into 70 degrees, but a lot of these areas, like up in the Adirondacks, the higher elevations of the Green and White Mountains, maybe even the Berkshires, the Catskills, and even the Finger Lakes region, Tuck Plateau, this will be some cooler showers. Temperatures maybe not getting out the 50s, so kind of just a fallish-like day out there. You're just missing the colors of the leaves and stuff, which, we're still in mid to late August. You're not going to, even up here, the leaves aren't changing yet. So nice fall day. I don't even live up there, and I get excited for other areas. So I have to keep the enthusiasm. Like, I would say a fantastic example of that was this past January when I was covering the big time winter storm for Tennessee, Kentucky, areas of Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. I had to keep my enthusiasm up, even though I was on the other side of that winter storm in the Carolinas, just miserable. The front never made it. I was basically trying to get excited for everybody else for a winter storm. You guys know I love winter weather, and it was very difficult, but eventually I got through it and got a lot of growth from covering that storm, and kind of eventually just got excited for you guys. I'm really hoping for my folks here in the Carolinas this winter we can pull a big one in. We are due. It seems like everybody else west of us has gotten a big winter storm like the last 4 or 5 years. So hopefully we can rear a real one in for us this winter. But anyways, we're getting into this afternoon for the south central U.S. There's nothing really going on. There's that marginal risk area, Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas all connect, Kansas. And some of these storms could reach severe limits if you live in this area right here. Doesn't look that impressive based off the HRRR model. But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be, so be aware of that. Everywhere else, guys, just hot, miserable, especially in Texas, and just not comfortable. So hopefully summer can loosen its grips on you guys soon. This morning, waking up to a little energy surging through South Dakota. This will kind of diminish, but we'll still be dealing with some rain in extreme eastern South Dakota into southwestern Minnesota into this afternoon. This energy will eventually get all the way into Iowa and kind of take over a good chunk of Iowa, especially the northern sections of the state and southern sections of Minnesota in the form of some light to moderate rain on and off. And then tomorrow morning, some of this activity could make it all the way into western Illinois, northern Missouri. But that's really about it. Maybe some shower activity up here in northeastern Minnesota, but pretty quiet weather day for this entire area. You're waking up to some pretty cool temperatures in the UP of Michigan. So, a little taste of fall up here for sure. Now, the Rockies, there's just kind of energy embedded in the ridge, kind of flowing inside the ridge here. So we're going to get some thunderstorms across the Four Corners region, but not very widespread. The only area of concern to me is up here in Montana, but not to just totally skip over you folks down here across the central and southern Rockies. There could be some storms around Flagstaff, some bigger storms south of Phoenix, right outside of Tucson, along the Arizona-Mexico line down here. Some of these storms could be severe. And then that energy in Colorado, and just watch out in eastern Utah, especially some storms. But just a little bit closer to our friends here in Montana, those storms will form in southern Montana, kind of drift southwest to northeast, kind of flow through the central sections of Montana. And, they don't look super impressive on the HRRR model. But, if you flip and, this is driven off a wind threat. So if you look at the damaging wind gusts with this, it looks a lot more aggressive if you look at the projected wind gust in southern Montana. So if you look at these areas in like the green, the orange, the red, this is where this particular model run is showing where you get 30, 40, maybe 50 mile per hour wind gusts. So be aware of this if you're in Montana for sure. So temperatures, you can see what the cold front is, right? Nice 70s. 70s in the Ohio Valley, 60s and 70s in the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region. You get into the interior sections of New England, maybe just 50s and 60s for highs. And even in the mid-Atlantic, folks, just 70s and low 80s, low humidity. And getting into the Carolinas, it warms up, widespread 80s, but you'll notice when you go outside, especially in like North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, and even, the mid-South, and all the states included in those areas, you'll notice when you go outside, it might be 85, heck, might be 88, 90 degrees, but you'll notice the humidity isn't as awful today in certain areas. Certain areas. You get closer to the Gulf Coast, that's a different story. The cold front hadn't really cleared, but it'll be a different type of heat today, a manageable heat, I would say. So those are temperatures. And then, with the ridge is building across the Rockies and the high plains, big time heat flexing. So, way up into the 90s, all the way into the high plains. You got 90s across the central high plains. A little bit of pocket of cooler air in the Pacific Northwest where you do have a trough kind of digging in place, lower pressure. Pretty hot across the Southwest. Nothing historic or by any means, but certainly hot. So that's the forecast for today. An update on the tropics. There's Ernesto. Ernesto technically still a hurricane. Lost pretty much its tropical characteristics. He's got enough still there to just, still be a strong storm system. But 75 mile per hour Hurricane Ernesto is racing away from Newfoundland at a pretty fast clip. If it continues to head north, it might pay a visit to Santa Claus up in the North Pole. Just kidding. But this has definitely been a system that's been with us for quite some time. And, made that kind of, I would say, rare direct landfall to Bermuda, which was pretty wild, but moving at about 36 miles per hour. So he's moving pretty fast. But, you look at the rest of the tropics, guys, you notice an area that typically begins to get active as we get into late August is quiet. There's no areas of interest. There's nothing in the Gulf or Caribbean, Southwest Atlantic. So it's quiet. It really is. There's nothing to monitor right this moment. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't look at some model guides and look at satellite and see what we're seeing. So the first thing we'll look at here is what's going on out there in the Atlantic Basin. Is there any tropical waves that look interesting? Any features? Well, I would say for the most part, if you give me an option just to say yes or no, I would say no. In fact, the Atlantic Basin is pretty void of any kind of storm activity. You got some, this little area here, these little areas here. But all in all, the immediate MDR stands for acronym for Main Development Region, the Tropical Atlantic. It's pretty quiet. Just some little bit of thunderstorm activity, but nothing that I would call a tropical wave. Now, with that trough digging down across this area of the U.S., especially as we're getting into later this week into this weekend, and it continues to drape across the Gulf coastline, we're going to need to watch any energy that sneaks into the Gulf of Mexico, and then it might drift into Texas. I keep occasionally mentioning that, and I think it's worth mentioning, and I'll kind of show you how some model guidance does support something trying to get going. So this is right now. Nothing to really say, hey, that has my attention right now. Now, I want to show you guys, and because there's a lot of chatter out there in the weather community, there's a lot of critics of the National Hurricane Center. It's wild, and guys, I always go off on a little side story here. It's wild how different but the same people are. You got these people that are just extreme critics of the National Hurricane Center and these forecasts. They almost get offended when you post like the National Hurricane Center forecast projection for storms. It's like I'm almost every time I post it on Facebook, for example, or even Twitter or X, you always get several comments that are just like, basically saying, this is a hoax, this is bullcrap. They're just trying to, it's a scare tactic. And I could just literally post a graphic and it says the latest National Hurricane Center projection on named storms this year. And it's just like people get offended by it. And it's wild to me. And then you got people on the other side that, are almost pulling for these tropical systems to happen. It's just like they almost get annoyed when you downplay it. And it's like there's not many people in between that. And I feel like it's like with all things in life. If it doesn't support kind of your agenda on what you want to happen or your thought process on something, then you can't tell them nothing. And it blows my mind. It's just like there's many different people out there, but at the same time, it's almost you can put and put a lot of people in just two different categories. So just have an open mind with this. Don't think that everybody's out to get you, and then don't pull for the worst case scenario to happen. Just watch a guy on the on a weather YouTube like me or anybody. It don't have to be me, and just hear him out. So anyways, I'm done. But let's keep on going here. So the latest GFS is interesting. Now, the wild thing about this is I'm starting this off 10 days from now, August the 30th. So that tells you right there on this particular run of the GFS, I'm not seeing anything from right now till then, right? So let's start it off on August 30th, the last couple of days of August. What's wild to me is the run from overnight last night just went crazy after day 10. Remember, that's not a reliable time frame. After day 10, all of a sudden you start to, let's go all the way out to literally the evening of September 4th. 384 hours out. This is day 15, okay? All of a sudden you got a name storm here. It looks like you got a tropical system right here. And let's try to draw on this a little bit. It's right here. You got a tropical system right here. And you got a tropical system right here. So all of a sudden, all areas of the Atlantic is getting lit up, okay? Am I asking you to believe any one of these? No, I'm not. Okay, so we got that there, right? And I'll tell you one thing. This is the first GFS run I would say this is the first model run over the last several days that showed anything post Ernesto that's worth saying, hey, man, that looks like a tropical system, right? So you get all this back off your screen, and let's look at the latest GFS. Now, I will note it is still running. It's only out to 306 hours, but I hadn't even looked at this yet. So this is new to you. This is new to me. It might not be new to you. Maybe you already looked at it before we started this video, but you get what I'm saying. And we're going to start this off from now. So we get into Wednesday, we get into Thursday, we get into Friday morning, nothing going on. Okay, we get into Saturday morning, not a whole lot going on. Okay, we get into Sunday morning all the way out to the 25th. I'm not seeing anything, right? No concentrated blobs of green out here. Now you get into Tuesday morning. 1 week from today. That's still pretty far out, right? Starting to get an L popping up, and I'm starting to see a little bit more moisture right into this area. It looks like the monsoon trough, which is what we call this area down here, is starting to get somewhat juiced up, okay? And we start to get into about 10 days from now, which is where we started the last one. Okay, 10 days from now, looks like you got a tropical wave right here. All right, something, hey, is this something getting going? I'm not sure. And then this is new. So we start to get into this is the last morning of August, August the 31st. All of a sudden, okay, now it looks like this would be Francine. Now I'm not saying, that's not Mitch saying, okay, this is exactly what's going to happen. I'm just saying, okay, that's two runs in the GFS in a row that we're seeing something past day 10, which, by the way, is not a reliable time frame. And then all of a sudden, it turns us into a significant hurricane, and it looks like it's heading a little bit more north. Now, so that's the latest GFS. One thing I want to note, guys, is we're seeing a lot of troughing, a lot of cold fronts in the eastern U.S. and basically in the medium to long term. This is good news if you're a fall weather fan, and this is good news for pushing any kind of tropical activity back out to sea. And if, for example, if I'm taking this run serious, and we only can go about to 318 hours out. I don't know what it does another 3 days from this point. It doesn't matter because it's so far out. This looks like it's about to try to turn back out to sea. And if we actually look at the pattern here, it doesn't support a full-fledged turn out to sea, as you do have a little bit of ridging on top of it. You see the green. But there's no point in talking about all that. But that's two runs of the GFS in a row, right? Now, what about the European? Remember, the European only goes out 240 hours out. Okay, 10 days out, which I think that's as far out as model guidance needs to go out. I really wish they would cut it off on the GFS at day 10. But anyways, we'll start off by next Monday morning. It has kind of that same tropical wave right here. Now the European continues. It kind of drifts this north, and we get 10 days from now. And it just has a 10-10 millibar low, just a tropical wave out there in the main development region. There's nothing too crazy about it. I will notice, though, what's wild is this looks like a big cold front digging down into a large portion of the country. You can see how there's a big time moisture cutoff here. And if I looked at it correctly, it looks like the GFS shows that same sort of feature at 240 out. It does. It shows a big trough digging down into sections of the U.S. That's something to watch. That's something to watch here. But, you know, a better way to look at this on the Euro is 500 millibar vort, so pieces of energy in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. And I'm going to put this in motion. And one thing you'll notice here is I want you to kind of look right here. Not a good color at all. I want you to look right here. And then I just want you to kind of look right here. So I want your eyeballs to basically go like this. I'm just kidding. I mean, I'll kind of move it twice for you. But there's going to be some energy that kind of trails off that leftover frontal boundary late this week that tries to get into the Gulf of Mexico and kind of goes like this. And you're going to just watch little features, tropical waves that get going out here in the main development region. So let's get this in motion. See that area in the Gulf of Mexico sort of spinning. And then you kind of have this weak tropical wave here and more stronger tropical wave right there. Big trough about to dig down into, that's interesting. It's an interesting trough. It really is. I'm always pulling for a cold front around the first weekend of college football. But anyways, not talking about that. But there is features out here, but there's no dominant piece of energy at day 10. And we look at the European ensemble, guys, and there's not a very impressive signal out here. This is, considering the fact the EPS makes up 51 members, that's not a very impressive signal. It's not even a real reason to spend a whole lot of time on it, to be honest with you. But now if you look at the GFS ensemble, and I'm not sure which run this is. I'm pretty sure, yeah, this is the OOZ one. The signal is a little bit louder, and this only makes up 21 members. So there is a little bit of a louder signal out here in the MDR, but to me, that's not a very loud signal. So that's all I got, guys. I hope that helps. We'll continue to, especially if this is kind of day one of model runs where we start to see some things kind of pop up, then we will start to talk about this a lot more. So, you know, when we kind of, you know, dumb this down to, you know, if you're asking me, okay, Mitch, when do you think it's going to get active? I would say we're going to be talking about our next named storm by the last couple of days of August, Francine. Maybe the next couple named storms. Do I think we're going to be tracking a hurricane threat to land by the last couple of days of August? I would say probably not, but I don't know. I mean, so and then my second take is going to be, I do think the first 10 days of September is going to be very active, and it matches up with the peak of hurricane season. So, but I do agree with the critics to a degree with, hey, you know, if we're going to match the forecast total from Colorado State University, to be actually exact on who does it, then we are going to have to run through a lot of names fast in September. But I've said this many times over the last several weeks. October is a wild card month, guys. You cannot just forget about October. And my folks in the Gulf Coast know all about October. October can do some damage. 2020 was the last big month as far as hurricanes in October, and it was a huge one. But it was our last one. We've had a pretty quiet October since. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really want hurricanes in October. I mean, you know, you got your fall decorations out. You know, that's just the time of the year, October through, in my opinion, through December, when things kind of turn inward and you just kind of just ready to get to a cooler pattern, you know. And to me, I start thinking about snow and things like that. We don't want to be tracking a Category 4 hurricane heading towards the panhandle of Florida in October. So, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I like tracking these tropical systems. I like tracking them when they're out to sea. I really do. I'm fascinated by how it works and things like that. That's why, you know, people are wondering, Mitch, why are you still tracking Ernesto? It's not going to impact land. Well, I like tracking it. And then two, you know, it ended up making a direct landfall to Bermuda and ended up scraping Newfoundland, and it brought impacts to Puerto Rico and the Lesser Antilles. So you bet your butt I'm going to continue to track it if it's going to impact anybody's life. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. I know it was a little spicy video this morning, but feeling good, feeling juiced up, high energy. And yeah, God is good, guys. You have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you again soon.